COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. If we want to stop this epidemic, we need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We're now seeing mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin.
I don't like it one bit.
The creepy music, though, too. The whole sounds like perfect.
I know. So, yeah, this is a guy by the name of Yuval Noah Harari, who is a contributor to the World Economic Forum, also a historian, philosopher, and an author. And he's one of the many intellects and minds that is working at the World Economic Forum as we speak right now in Switzerland to discuss the prospect of our future and what they describe as this fourth industrial revolution, this massive, rapid onset of technological innovation and development coupled with all the different issues that we share as a global society, as they would say, and how we can go into this new technological future while also discussing these issues and as a global society coming to a conclusion on how we fix them. Now, you'll often hear about the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset and all of these massive things that are new to me in many ways and probably new to you in many ways, spoken about as sort of this ominous figure that is ever present and lurking on you and is going to change the world if they get their claws in the right position to do so. And I want to talk about that, what the World Economic Forum says it is on its website and its brochures, how it markets itself as a future that is meant to be sustainable, equitable, a word that we love, and impartial, and how they talk to us about their future and how we see the world being more sustainable and equitable for everybody who lives here. And we want to solve the problems, particularly as it pertains to things like climate change and the environment. You'll find that that's much of what they talk about and discuss as the WEF. Now, is that something that we should be scared of? Is that something that should set off alarm bells? Because on its face, it doesn't sound too horrible. You would think that most people can agree that the earth is a very precious thing, this rock that we live on, and that we should do things to make it sustainable, make life better for all of those involved. And I think a lot of us can recognize that there is a massive disparity, particularly as it pertains to class, that is creating a divide between those who we would call the elite and the others, the other classes, the middle class, the lower class, the impoverished. And I think on both sides of the aisle, people can look at that and go, well, that doesn't seem too great. That seems like something we should fix. The World Economic Forum and people like Klaus Schwab and the great resetters of the world are claiming to want to solve those problems as well. But what scares me, or what really sets off alarm bells, is some of the rhetoric and some of the ideas behind the Great Reset and how we structure this new globalist economy that apparently we should be having. And it seems to me that a lot of it surrounds massive surveillance with our government entities, not just here in the United States, but across the world, and using that surveillance to control what we do economically, what we do with our lifestyles, giving the government all of our resources, and then being judged based on what we give the world. You'll hear a lot of this surrounding 2030, you will own nothing and be happy. It seems as though with the Great Reset, their view of the future is you wake up in the year 2030, you are in a government-owned housing unit that they have decided to give to you for a time being, and when you're gone, someone else will live there. You make breakfast with your government-owned appliances, and you go to work in your safely scored, low-carbon emission car that the government has chosen for you. It's payday at work today, but you don't have to worry about it because you have a central banking digital currency that goes immediately to your digital wallet, where also your passports are housed. All of your financial transactions are housed and looked at by the government. All of your health information is housed and looked at by the government. There's no form of privacy under what we call this central banking digital currency system. And right after work, you think, it's been a really long day. I think I'm going to go to the grocery store and buy a nice big bar of chocolate. And when you go to check out, the cashier says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You've gone over your personal carbon allowance for this week, and I can't sell you this high carbon product. You're going to have to go home empty-handed." That's what it seems to me is the future that people at the WEF, World Economic Forum, seem to be fighting for. Now, I could be totally wrong. I will suspend much of what I've seen so far to take a deep dive with you today. Look at the World Economic Forum's website. Look at some of the videos that they put out, how they market themselves, what they claim to be doing, and what the New York Post has called the most exclusive party, which is happening right now in Switzerland as the World Economic Forum meets. And this is a group of young intellectuals, philosophers, world leaders, celebrities coming together, corporations meeting together, and we will talk about what corporations here shortly, meeting to discuss your future. Do you look at those people? These people who claim to have nothing but sustainability in their hearts and in their minds, and do you trust them with coming up with decisions and ideas that will fully affect your future and how you live in this country, regardless of where you're viewing right now? I know a lot of people outside of the United States are viewing this content right now and watching this show. Do you trust these people to be making decisions? Do you trust your world leaders to be discussing what exactly happens with your life in the year 2030 and whether or not that is a life filled with surveillance and no privacy and no private ownership? So let's watch a video from the World Economic Forum. This is on their page, weforum.org, and this is their story. Here's the end of that video where they are discussing what their major plan is, what the world looks like to them.
We always put humanity and human in center.
And that's where the forum is at its best. It's as a way to shine a spotlight of where the world community could be headed.
We have the incredible potential of the information technologies, of the ways of communicating. We're only at the beginning of recognizing how far that is going to change our lives.
Each one of the fourth industrial revolution technologies has that potential to create a society that's more positive, that's more sustainable, that's more inclusive.
If we can accelerate the formulation of a solution for a rare disease or climate or access to healthcare by a single day, it means a lot to a big chunk of the world population.
Light आ गया, कैसा लग रहा है? बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है और आप उन्हें काम करने को बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है.
This is about shaping the trajectory of our planet, being that credible, neutral platform that is trusted to bring these stakeholders together and provide them guidance that they're willing to implement.
Valuing equally that lots of different people might have a contribution to give, because it often is some of those sort of rare ideas that are coming from an unexpected place that happen to be the game changers.
I like sci-fi movies. I don't like when sci-fi movies play out in my real life and I watch them in front of my eyes as we watch world leaders like Xi Jinping of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, shake hands of other world leaders and talk about how we're moving towards a more sustainable and equitable future. Really think about that for a moment. In your description of a sustainable and equitable future, your background B-roll is President Xi Jinping shaking hands with people. We also see leaders like Macron and Prince William making their appearance in this. And to me, this could look like, oh, it's just people meeting, and isn't this so beautiful? We talk about unity so much. Isn't it so great to see all of these world leaders unite in one spot? But when those world leaders don't have your best interest at heart, that's not such a great thing to see them all meeting in one spot and shaking hands. And like I said, a lot of the language, as with so many things in life, is so beautiful and sounds so harmonious, like we're truly going to meet with all the billions of people who now inhabit this earth, and we're going to build something that works for all of them. What a beautiful thing to hear. But when we go in and look at the major players who are having these discussions, and we analyze what their motives might be, even though they tell us there is really no motive, they're completely impartial, and their only motive is to make things better for everybody involved. We have to question that when we look at the players involved here. And if we get to, let's say that this is truly their goal, the World Economic Forum and all this great reset stuff and the fourth industrial revolution is really about solving human issues, solving the issues of poverty and hunger and having people have access to water all over the world and healthcare and working through these problems like pandemics that pop up all of a sudden and affect the world globally. If that's really their goal, to make sure that these problems do not happen again and that everybody lives in this sustainable future, is that a goal worth getting to through the means that they mean to use, like massive surveillance and lack of privacy and complete government regulation and this sort of overlord view of what the government can be in order to sustain that future for us? Now, a lot of people will look at that and go, yes, if that means we fix things like world hunger, we fix things like poverty and access to water and pandemics, yes, give the government control of all resources, allow them to do anything that they need to do, allow them to communicate with different countries across the globe so that we can do this globally and come to one massive agreement on these things. A lot of people will look at that and go, I think that's a fair trade-off. And if that means me losing my privacy and my individual freedoms and civil liberties, by all means, I will make that trade. And that is for you to decide. So I hope by the end of this episode, you can decide. I don't err on that side of being willingly giving up my civil liberties and freedoms in order to sustain a future like that, because I feel as though a future that operates without those freedoms and without those civil liberties is a future that is not worth living in, and it doesn't actually bring about things like life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, all of these things that we currently get to enjoy in our country here in the United States. So is it worth sacrificing and losing those things, and is that something at stake? Now you'll see this man's face.